Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
John. I'm Brian.
And welcome to another episode of Board Play Again, where we take a look at games we've recently got to the table with the view of how quickly we're going to get them back to the table. With ever-growing collections, time can be precious. So we ask the question of, what do we play again? Today we have Tiwanaku from Sit Down. Now, you may have seen them on the channel previously where I caught up with Sophie at UKGE. And we finally got this to the table, and it's a nice little game. And in order to play this, you have the option of 3 different modes of play. So you can do solo mode, you can do cooperative, and you can do competitive. All follow the same sort of rules, but we're going to show you how we did the competitive version, and that's what we're going to be mainly talking about when we go through this. So, in order to set up Tiwanaku, you first must select a wheel that's going to go in the Pachamama wheel. Now, if you've got a short game for 2 players, you will select potentially a short one, or a longer game if you wish, or for more players. These are like our divination wheels. These will go into the Pachamama wheel, and they will help us find our way as we go through the game. Now, once we've chosen the wheel, we will set up the tiles, the tile supply and some starting tiles, and we will then randomise first player, and we'll go from there. On your turn, you can do one of 2 main actions. First action is to explore. And to explore, you will either do one of 3 things. Take a meeple and move it onto the board. Now, a meeple can move orthogonally in any direction as far as it can move, and turn either at a tile with a crop tile already on it, or turn at a one where there's no meeple. Or you can just go straight onto the board into a blank space. Alternatively, on a later turn, you can then move a meeple that's already been moved. Okay, already on the board. Or finally, you can just take a meeple off the board. Now, you may want to do that if you get stuck in an area you're not quite sure about and you want to diversify where you're going to go. Once you've finished that move, you're more than likely going to end up on an empty terrain space. And once you've got there, you will then use the coordinates that are along the side and the top of the board to consult the Pachamama wheel for the exploration side of the board. So we are on the moon and I believe the salamander, and we will then open this side of the board. Now, hoping you might be able to see in there, that is going to be a desert sort of plains tile. So we'll then take that plains tile and we'll put that on the board. At this point, we then get to move up the divination track. So I will move up 1 on this area, which will then score me 1 point. Now, if I had already done this and my next tile was sort of a earthy tile, and I move this up, I would gain 2 points because you gain a number of points equal to the number of tokens in the row. So the idea here is that you diversify to score more points. Okay, so I would score 1 point on the track. The second option for your turn is to divine. Typically, you're going to get a few meeples on the board before you do this, and divining then allows you to guess what tiles need to be placed out. So we're trying to fill all this board with these crop tiles. So I will turn around and go, this might be a 3. More often than not, you are going to be aware of what you're guessing, but for the purposes here, I'm just going to say that's a 3. Normally you'd pass this to another player. They would then do exactly what we did when we looked at the terrain tile for the explore action, but we're going to look at the divination side of the board. Now, that is showing us a 4. So what we would do then is take a 4 and put this on there. Now, I guessed that incorrectly, so I would now lose 4 points. If I'd have guessed it correctly, I'd have gained 4 points, so equal to the number of the tile placed, and I would have got a food token. Now, these are important because you can only have 1 of each in your supply. And then at the end of your turn, you get to do an offering. Now, with an offering, you will then spend the tokens that you've collected as you've gone through the game, and exponentially based on the number of what you've got, you'll get more points for it. So unfortunately you don't get any points for 1, but you'll get 1 point for 2, and I think it's 3 for 3, and so on as you go up. They go back to the supply, so you can then take them again. So ideally I wouldn't want to be picking up multiple 4s because it's just I can only get 1 token unless I've then spent it. So that's the actions in the game, and you keep going until you get to the last tile is then placed, and then everybody gets a final guess, one at a time, for each meeple that they've got on an empty tile, and then we end the game. The person with the most points would win. But what I've not explained is how you actually discern what tiles are going where and why they're going there, and actually how you know what points are going to score. Now, there's two main rules on that, and the first one is the rule of diversity, which is based on the terrain types. Now, terrain types can come in blocks of up from 1 to 5, and they will come in orthogonal size shapes with no sort of diagonal connections, and they can be, like I say, up to 5. Now, for instance, this one here is going to be a 5. Now, it could connect to this one, or it could be just this area up here. But for instance, if this tile was here, we know that that one would have to connect to these purely because it is you couldn't have two different zones connecting diagonally. Okay, so then the second one is the rule of separation, and that's based on these crop tiles. So we've mentioned that we're going to have zones of up to 5. In each zone, you can only have one of each type of crop tile. Now, for instance, here we know now that this area is going to have a 3, a 2, and a 1, whether it's this one or a different one. And we will know to start off with that this zone is going to have at least a 1 and a 2, but it might have a 4 or a 5. Again, and with the rule of separation for these, you then can't have a 5 adjacent to itself, even diagonally. So we would know, for argument's sake, that none of these empty tiles would then be a 5. Or none of these empty tiles would be a 3. So using those two bits of information, you would then work out what's going to score you the most points, where you want to go, and you're relying on the other people at the table to probably give you a little bit of information. And that there is everything that's going to get you towards the end of the game.
So the first thing to say is the production quality is really quite good. The boards are nice and thick, the pieces are what you'd expect. They've got little stickers on them as well, so you can distinguish them even if you've got a bit of colour blindness. The tiles are different sizes. The centrepiece, of course, is the Pachamama wheel, which is cardboard. It's quite clever the way it works. It has to be assembled. There's a screw attachment in here where you take it apart and slide this in. You've got to be quite careful, I think, when you use it. If you squeeze it too much, you could cause some of these things to move as you're moving it, and they don't take much to move it out of alignment. So you can see how close they are on the bare wheel. It's cardboard, which I think is deliberate choice for sort of environmental reasons, but I think it might suffer from continued use over the years. It's okay, sometimes it's a bit difficult to get this in. You have to remind yourself which part it goes in. But otherwise, it looks gorgeous. It's nice and chunky. You can see what you're doing, and it's quite fun to use actually. So
it's a real wow! Look at that!
You said centerpiece, and it is the centerpiece.
It is centerpiece of the game, I think. And without it, to be honest, the game wouldn't work really very well because these are really complicated.
Yeah,
they're very cleverly done, and kudos to the team that did it because it's just brilliant.
Now, one thing obviously to note is this is just the standard retail edition. There was a deluxe Kickstarter edition. I think there's a few deluxe copies going to some retailers. So in that, all of these tokens are wooden. All of these tiles are wooden. So if you don't think this is pretty enough, there is another version out there. Obviously, it's a very abstract game that's got a bit of theme associated to it, with the reasoning of why we're looking to divine to the crops that we're going to be placing, and as like that sort of callback of ancient civilizations that would have consulted gods to decide where their crops would have been put.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the main calendar thing that said the world was going to end when it was
the Mayan calendar.
Yeah. But that definitely, when we were looking at this and sorting out to play for the first time, it was like, okay, I understand that. And then somebody said, and this is how we work out what goes where. And I went, oh, that's nice. And I think all good games have a gimmick, and that is definitely it. It's otherwise you're playing a spreadsheet because you'd be looking up coordinates and stuff, and you'd have sheets and looking for different cards and stuff. So it's a brilliant implementation.
I do like the way they've done the coordinates. It's not A's and B's and numbers. They've got, mythical sort of symbology, like a llama or a snake or a salamander, and then weather function, the sun or the rainbows or the clouds. And so each node is unique, but it's just a little bit special.
It's interesting. As soon as you start playing it, it's instantly a watery eagle, mountainous llama.
They very much became an adjective animal.
Yeah, very, very quickly. But yeah, it's but that's part of the game. It's just something that it's not in the rules, but it's
just something that
it adds to it. It's what makes it personal. I think it's good.
Yeah,
flowery otter.
Yeah, and obviously it's right straight off at the beginning of the video. I did say obviously there are 3 different modes for this. So you have got that solo opportunity. You've got that cooperative element where you'll be hiding some of the tiles as you go through. So you don't have all of the information. You're trying to work together there. But this is the competitive version, and I think whilst we've not explored those 2 options, I think this is the nice one. We might come back around to the solo mode towards the end, but I think playing this as a competitive game is really quite nice. Because you've got such a depth in mechanics. Because when you open the box, you go, "Oh, it's a sort of puzzle. You've got to learn where things are." No, it's also got an area control mechanic in it.
Yeah.
Because if I'm on that space, you can't go on that space. Even though I'm not ready to divine what it is, I'm taking a chance that that's going to be a 5.
Yeah, and you can only divine when you're actually on an empty space.
Yeah.
So I can't divine that from here.
Yeah.
From here, I've got to be on the space.
And the one thing I didn't mention in the rules overview was that when you divine, you can keep divining on multiple spaces of yours until you either get a wrong answer or you decide not to. So if these were all clear, if I was all clear and we had tiles out here, I could divine on these 3 spots if we had terrain out. And providing I got them right, I could keep going. So you kind of almost want to get to a point where you know enough that you can start with a really good one. By the time you get to that last one, you might go, "Oh, actually, that's giving me an extra bit of information." But the problem with you having a bit more information is that everybody else has a bit more information on it.
It's definitely a game of 2 halves. The first half, you got no idea really what the numbers are going to be, and yet you can guess, but you're losing points quite significantly as you do that.
Yeah.
So it comes to a point where someone's got to blink first, or you're convinced, okay, nothing else is around. There has to be a 2-part terrain area, and you're really quite sure what it is. But once it starts to be filled up, there's a ripple effect going on. I think
it's like dominoes. They sort of like they cascade down, and that's where you said that can't be a 3 in any of those spaces, but you don't know what colour it's necessarily going to be, and that the layout, because it shifts, it's always that puzzle element always changes. So you're guessing where, or educated guessing something. It's going to be a 5, so I'll move there and just hold that. But the fact that it all changes, different layouts. The grass parts, that could be a 4, it could be a 3. The blue could come down here, and that just adds to it. The fact that it's ever in a state of flux, I think.
Yeah, and you'll have seen that we've got different numbers of tiles out, and actually you do use different number of tiles. You don't use every single tile at every game, which is quite different.
And that's other information that you can use to your advantage. So if you know that this stacks down to like the last couple or 3, then you know a bit more information about where they might be on the board.
But also, one thing that we found was very important in our last game was focusing on the lower number of stacks to increase your diversity points.
Yeah.
Because if you're not equally getting these out, you're going to lose points potentially, or lose opportunity of points.
Yeah.
So you might want to run around going all in on the green and the blue for the grass and the mountains to get the 5s, but you're possibly losing a couple of points.
There's quite a lot of luck in that, I found, because you don't know. You can kind of guess that these might be deserts, but you don't know whether this is a here or here. So you're trying to find them.
Yeah.
You might get unlucky and find a desert there, or okay, I need another one here that is unlikely to be a desert. Oh, it's still a desert. And so you're losing on the diversity tracker. And I think my first game, I kept finding the same terrain, all the mountains in like the first 5 rounds. It's like, so that's a bit of luck.
Yeah, and obviously the further up you're going, you're then not getting the diversity points. So if you was on 3 and then the next one goes to 1, you only get the 1 point because you're not picking up the extra on that line. So I think, John, you likened this to a certain Windows application.
Yeah. So when I was taught this, I was told it's like Sudoku, but it's more like Minesweeper, where you have the coordinates and you have to click on the empty spaces and it tells you there's 3 next to this or whatever. And that's kind of how more it feels to me. It's kind of a cross between the two with the area control, but it works really well in that element because there's great moments of clarity where you just go, right, that's that, and then you got to maneuver yourself into position to grab that tile before somebody else has that, and you can almost see in people's faces again, poker face. I know what, I know what that is.
The area control, I think, adds a bit more to this than it otherwise would have. So you can say, okay, I know what that's going to be. I'm going to park myself on that square.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows where that's going to be.
Yeah.
And if it's worth 4 or 5 points, it's worth having.
Yeah, and actually you go, it might be a 4, it might be a 5. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm going to hold out and I'm going to get a bit more information to the point where you might have put that out first 2 turns and you don't move until the end of the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And that element is a bit of luck. I mean, I first time I played this had 2 50-50 choices, 3 or 5, and I got them both wrong. So I was losing those points, but it's just having that enough information to make an educated guess or deduce what it's going to be.
Yeah. And there is that who blinks first moment of somebody's got to divine. You can't just keep going around guessing the terrain.
Yeah.
You've got to divine because if you get to that last tile placement and you've not done much of the divining or the divination, you then enter a final sort of guess round. So you kind of don't want to push that to the end because somebody might be sitting on more potential points than you. So you want to be divining as you go. Again, getting these offering tokens that you're going to be able to use.
Yeah.
So,
replayability, loads. The amount of cards that you actually get to.
Yeah, it comes with quite a lot of cards in the box. And to be honest, yes, you could say I'll play this once, I'll know where the patterns are. But realistically, a couple of other games or a few weeks pass, you won't remember what these are.
Yeah, I mean, you really won't. I think you could probably, even with 3 or 4, you'd probably soon forget. Yeah. Unless you were playing it every couple of days.
Evening,
you're going to forget where things go.
we said this about Decorum when we played that. Like there are a certain number in the box for this. There are 20 wheels, and then I think there's an expansion you can get for another 20 wheels. So I think even at that, you've got 40 puzzles there, or 40 attempts there, and then changing up the mode to change the game slightly. So I think in the solo and competitive mode, you've got 2 different factions that you're going in against.
Yeah, and there's a bit of automation in there as well.
Yeah,
to help you out with the solo mode.
Yeah, so I think you've got the 40. Then arguably you could use those in the other modes as well. So it's not just going to be a simple, straightforward answer. And again, I'd never remember which one I've played. Yes, if you played the same one twice, you're probably going to remember it, but there's enough variety there to get it through.
So it's is it more of a puzzle or more of a game?
Yeah, we've questioned this beforehand. Is it a puzzle? Is it a game? Is it an experience? I think it is a puzzle. I think there's a game element here, particularly in the sort of the cooperative, the competitive mode, but I think it's a puzzle.
We did find it was difficult not to chip in on other people's turns.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to be 3 there because it can't be there. Oh, I've given it away.
But then that soon stopped when you realise the competitive element. I'm not telling you what I know. Yeah, I think it's a gamified puzzle.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really is. But it's really well done. It's really well implemented.
Yeah, and I think for me there is that bit of element, and like I said, I'd come back to the solo mode that maybe getting a solo out of this to keep going through, it would be. I think that's where it might sit for me particularly now. And I think you have mentioned the centerpiece of the Pachamama wheel, and I think this is one of those games you want to show people, and you want to go, got this. Come and look at this. It's pretty. We've mentioned convention type games that people will come and look at, and I think this is one of those that people will go, What are you playing?
It's like
What are you doing?
wavelength with that dial thing that you're moving backwards and forwards. It's got that lovely thing that
Bit of
makes you
table
go, "Ooh,
presence.
look at that. What's that? How does that work? Oh, okay, right." It's like, you know.
So, with all that being said, then, John, would you play again?
I'd play it again, but with a caveat of I wouldn't want to play it right after I played it once. I think it's a one play and move on and come back to it sometime later. It's not so maybe it's a hesitate. It's somewhere. If we had another level between again and hesitate, maybe it would sit in there. But because I'd hesitate to play it twice, but I would play it again.
You wouldn't want to get burnt out with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think you said just what I was going to say. I like it. I would play it again, but I don't think I could play it again straight away.
Yeah.
And it does need that bit of separation, a few weeks' time. But if it came out on the table, I think, oh yeah, I wouldn't mind giving that a go again.
Also, to get rid of the headache.
Sitting here talking about it has that made me think more about it and think, yeah, actually,
Yeah. So I was drifting towards hesitate, but I think I would say play again because it is a good fun game. But yeah, it's not going to come out every gaming session.
Yeah. So for me, it's we'll play again, and I think you may have touched on the notes where I think that's going to be, for me, it will be probably as a solo experience. I think maybe it'll be, do I want to play a puzzle, or would I do a puzzle, or would I play this? And I think actually I like this, and maybe it might be a bit too much to get everything out, but I think for the solo, I think that's my next play for this is going to be solo.
yeah, I think it'd be an interesting experience as solo.
Yeah.
I really do, because it's almost like doing a crossword or a Sudoku or one of those number puzzles that you put in the word search book.
I would be interested in seeing the cooperative version because you didn't explain it particularly, but some of these are hidden behind your screen.
Yeah.
And your partner doesn't know what you've got.
Yeah, and you have to give up her
So-
time every turn. So
That's another element of deduction which we haven't explored yet. So
Yeah.
maybe it's got more legs than I realised.
So thank you for watching along with that episode of We'll Play Again. If you haven't done so already, please check out our other videos on the channel. Give us a like and a subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Take care.
All right.
So bye.